So let's look at Monday, page 50, in our study on Lent with the Desert Fathers. The word on Monday, someone once asked a certain Abba to accept some money for his future needs, but he refused since the work of his hands supplied all his needs. On being pressed repeatedly that at least he might accept something in order to give to the poor, he replied, "There are two reasons why I can't agree. First, I would be taking something I did not need, and second, if I were to give it away, it would only make me conceited." That's a different way of looking at it. Okay, and at the bottom of page 50, he says, talking about the Abba's attitude, "It's a posture I wish more of us Christians had. I'd love for us to be able to give freely, knowing it isn't money that takes care of us." I found this a difficult day. The thought there is out of kilter with most of the way that we look at things. I think I would have been inclined to take the money at the end and do what I suggested and give it to the poor. But this Abba refused it, and Mackenzie sees in there the idea of knowing that it isn't money that takes care of us. Now that idea is easier to wrap my mind around. I see what he's saying there. And that makes sense to me. And
It's almost like the person that he would be talking to would then feel, how would they feel giving money away? Would they feel conceited? Is he indicating that when you do stuff like that, it would make you feel conceited?
yeah, and that's a good point to watch out for. When we give, why do we give? I think a lot of Christians give for the right reasons. Wanting to serve God, wanting to help the church, wanting to help people. But I remember a discussion with somebody that really hit the border there. I wasn't really sure whether it was healthy or not. They were saying that they didn't give to groups like Samaritan's Purse or denominational missions. They preferred to give money directly to people so they could see the look on the person's face when they gave it to them. And just the whole context of the conversation and the person's body language, I wasn't sure if they were saying something positive or if it wasn't that they were feeling too good about themselves. And I think that's the risk that we're being warned about there. The Abba was afraid if he took the money and he gave it to somebody, he'd be proud of himself for doing it. Aren't I more righteous than most Christians because I gave this away rather than keeping it? And there are a lot of subtle spiritual dangers like that, and I think that's what he's warning us about there. And it does kind of lead in a backdoor way, I think, to Mackenzie's conclusion that we have to hold money very carefully with the realization it isn't money that takes care of us. It's God. And God usually provides through money. He usually provides through a job or through some what we call normal means of provision. And yet there are times when God provides just out of the blue in ways outside of the norm. Scriptural example is when Elijah was at the brook and God fed him with ravens bringing food to him. Now obviously Elijah was not a germ-phobe, or he wouldn't take food that the ravens had carried to him, but God provided in that way, and God's never provided for me like that. There's been times when just out of the blue something has come in that I had no reason to expect to come in, and it met a financial need. And I imagine most, if not all of you, have had some experience like that. But, the action step that was suggested was give some money away, do it freely, and do it cheerfully. Okay. I'll just take a quick look at the settings on the computer here, having a problem. Huh. Okay, it says we're connected to the internet, so it's not that. Okay, we'll just keep rolling like this. People are going to wonder what's going on. I'll post that later. Okay. Any day get your attention, Andy?
Yeah, it was mainly, the conceited issue.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me question, do you really give, well, let's say here, it makes you feel good. And that's what it should be, but I think if you try to give so that other people see, then that kind of twists it a little bit, and it's
Mhm.
not what it's really supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Still makes you feel good, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's look at today, Wednesday, page 53. Page 53. And Abba said, although you may be chaste, don't condemn the unchaste, for that is sinning too. Didn't the same God who said, thou shalt not commit adultery, also say, judge not? This was another challenging one, I thought. He goes on to write, chastity, abstaining from immoral sexual thoughts or behavior, was part of what it meant to be a monk of the desert. Should be part of what it means to be a Christian. So it would make sense that these same monks would judge those who are unchaste. They might think to themselves, I'm holy enough not to do that. So that person must not be as holy as I am. And he points out things like drinking to the point of intoxication being something else that we can be judgmental about. But the main point there is judging is sin. Okay, he writes, when I judge, I elevate myself over another human being. I ignore the deep reality of my own sinfulness, and I put myself in the place of God. Just stopping right there. I think that's getting to the core of why it's a sin to judge. And it's so easy to fall into, and it can seem like, well, yeah, I don't approve of what they're doing. I shouldn't approve of what they're doing. But there's an important difference between not approving of bad behavior and being judgmental about it, feeling self-righteous about it. It's an elevation of myself over another human being to the point that we're ignoring the deep reality of our own sinfulness. And his action step, again, is simple, but a good one. Whom have you judged recently? Instead of judging them, pray for them. Also, pray that the Lord may forgive you for your sin of judgment. So that's a good thing, again, to ingrain in our thinking. When we catch ourselves judging someone, we need to put up a red light stop ourselves and shift from judging them, condemning them in our minds to, oh man, they're just not spiritual, with the implication they're not as spiritual as I am. That's where it becomes a problem. And shift instead to praying for them. And I think adding to that, praying that God would open our eyes to our own sinfulness. That's always something that we really need help with. The Bible passage he quotes from Matthew 7 takes us there pretty clearly. Jesus said, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." I'll make another quick attempt to get this rolling. Trying to get the internet up. It says the internet's connected, so it's not that. Make this final attempt here and see if it goes or not. Okay, was there any day that got your attention?
They all get my attention.
That's good.
I fit in too deeply into these. I find problems.
That's good. So we looked at Friday and Monday and Wednesday. Let's take a look at Sunday, page 48. Here's one from Arsenius, the church father we looked at earlier. Abba Arsenius said, "If we seek God, he will appear to us. If we grasp him, he will stay with us." Okay. If we seek God, he will appear to us. If we grasp him, he will stay with us. Looking at the reflection there, he wrote, "I have an unusual eye condition which requires me to wear hard-weighted contact lenses. These lenses are expensive, but they will last for years. Occasionally, while removing one, I'll accidentally drop it. When this happens, I can normally find it quickly, but sometimes it takes a weird bounce and disappears. So I get down on my hands and knees, searching every inch of the floor. Sometimes this takes a long time. I get nervous and even scared. But I don't give up because I know for certain that the contact is there somewhere. I always find it. Searching for God is like that. Sometimes he's easy to spot. He shows up in my life and I recognize him quickly. Sometimes it seems he isn't there at all, like he's wandered off. Sometimes I really need him, but I can't seem to find him. It's in times like those that I think of my contact lens. I know it's there, so I don't give up. I know God is there, at least theoretically, so I don't give up. No matter how scared or angry I get, I can rely on the truth that he exists. I can rely on Jesus' promise that if I seek him, I will find him. Of course, God is present everywhere, but I don't always or even often recognize him. Arsenius must have felt the same way. He sought God, knowing God was always near. More than that, he wanted to grasp God, take hold of him, and make him stay. That part of this word is beyond my understanding. I don't know how to grasp hold of God. I certainly don't grasp him intellectually, and I've never been able to hold him down. I suppose Arsenius was far more spiritually advanced than I ever will be. Okay. There's a lot there. I like the honesty of that, admitting there's times in each of our lives where we see, it seems like we can't find God. It seems like he's not there. There's times where it seems like our prayers are just words going nowhere. I've heard the old expression, it seems like the heavens are brass, and in other words, like there's a brass ceiling over us and our prayers just hit them and bounce right back and they're not going anywhere. And I've come to be convinced that's a natural part of the spiritual life. It's not a fun part, but it's natural and it's universal. I've never talked with any honest Christian who doesn't admit to having times like that in some way. And if it's that common, then there's a reason why God has made us like that. There's a reason why we experience that. There's probably a lot of reasons, but I think some of them, the first ones come to my mind, is it makes us, eventually, it makes us hunger to the point that we desperately start looking for ways to push through. We become earnestly desiring for God, like Psalm 42, I think we read last week. As the deer panteth for the water, so my soul panteth for thee, O God. Too often we're at a place where we're not panting for God. We're not desiring Him. We are satisfied with everyday life and things of everyday life, and we're not trying to push through. But God sometimes allows the desert experiences to bring us to that point where we really feel a deep desire for Him, yearning for Him. Like that deer desperately needing water, wanting water, feeling like it can't live unless it gets water. That's where God wants us to be, and sometimes He brings us through a dry time to bring us there. It's also humbling. When we find ourselves prideful, like the one study this evening was talking about, looking down at others, God can bring us through a dry time to make us realize that maybe we're not as high and mighty as we thought we were. Need to always keep in mind that the good we have is not of ourselves. The good we have spiritually is the work of God in us. It's a gift of God. It's grace. If we have anything good, it's because God's working in us. And if God takes His hand off of us, the best of us, quote unquote, has enough sin and evil in us that we could end up in places we thought we would never be. I think it was a study that we looked at last week where they found that the one common thread among pastors who fell was they thought that it would never happen to them. That pride is a very dangerous thing. And God will cure us of it one way or another, and it's often a painful cure. I guess McKinsey is showing humility in that sentence where he says, I suppose Arsenius was far more spiritually advanced than I ever will be. Action step was a great one. Spend a few minutes today asking God to reveal Himself to you. Where are you, God? Is a good question to ask Him. Jesus said in Luke 11, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, the door will be opened. And from past research, I know that the verbs used there are present tense that have the idea seek and keep on seeking. Knock and keep on knocking. And it takes that persistence sometimes. And persistence comes from spiritual hunger, spiritual thirst, that deep desire that God awakens. Any thoughts, questions you'd like to share? Sunday. Let's roll on to last Thursday. The devil once appeared to an Abba in the guise of an angel of light and said, I am the angel Gabriel, and I have been sent to you. But the Abba said, are you sure you weren't sent to someone else? I'm not worthy to have an angel sent to me. And the devil immediately disappeared. Okay, and Mackenzie goes on to say the story made him laugh, talks about the humor of the story. And I have to admit, when I first read it, I didn't see any humor. I just saw it as a straightforward story. Good story. And the point I saw, I think, is the same one that Mackenzie gets around to seeing, that being humility. But looking back after Mackenzie suggests that there's humor, I can see the humor, but I was slow to catch that, to be honest. Just have to see the Abba kind of with a Yiddish inflection, saying, are you sure you weren't sent to someone else? I'm not worthy to have an angel sent to me. So the difference there is the Abba realizes from the start, this is not the angel Gabriel. This is Satan trying to take him down. And rather than rebuking him outright, he plays the game with him. But even in the game, he's showing humility in what he says. Mackenzie says the story makes me laugh, which I think is part of its genius. The idea of some old Abba in the desert, living alone in a cave, is mystical and serious. And they have the presence of Satan, the incarnation of evil. And I expect there to be some kind of showdown. But there's no showdown. There's no battle. The Abba makes a smart aleck remark, and poof, the devil is gone. And he points out there that we see a holy person who doesn't take themselves seriously. Now again, I didn't see that there, but I can see how it can be read that way. But the way I read it and the way he's reading it both take us to humility, not taking ourselves too seriously. He writes further down, a good way to pay attention to your own spiritual life is to ask the question, am I willing to laugh at myself? Can people you live with or work with make gentle fun of you? If someone makes a joke at your expense, how do you react? Not just outwardly, but inside. Being abused isn't God's will for you, and low esteem is not God's desire for his children, low self-esteem, but neither is a prideful attitude that says, yes, I am worthy of an angel visiting me. So that's a good, gentle rebuke at our pride again. And that's a good measure. How do we respond when people gently poke fun of some weakness that we've got? That can be a challenge. Action step, if someone offends you today, take a step back. Are you offended because that person is being mean, or because your pride is injured? If it's the latter, maybe you can laugh at yourself a bit. And the scripture connected there is where the grace given to me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you. Okay. Do you have any thoughts on that one?
I know it would have been easy to have gone the other way.
Yeah.
Very easy. I would have been amazed, but yeah, I would have been really excited.
Mm-hmm.
And this, and what he says is really true. Why would he send someone, an angel to me?
Yeah.
I'm not that great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Yeah, just a good backdoor way of drawing us toward a basic spiritual virtue, again, of humility. And so many of these are doing that. Not necessarily through humor, but through some unexpected phrasing. And I think some of that comes from the fact that it is such a different culture, so far away and so long ago, and it's good to be exposed to that. It jars us some. It forces us to think in categories we might not think of without that kind of challenge. Okay. The other days are good too. I think we're going to wrap it up. And I'm going to end this and see if I can get this uploaded later. I have no idea what happened with the computer.